Warning: the following content may contain story spoilers and a lot of bias. Hey everybody, it's Ray, and today we're going to be talking about one of my favourite playable characters in Genshin Impact. Tartaglia,
codename Child,
is a 5-star bow user with a Hydra vision. So far, Child is the only playable character to hail from Snezhnaya, as well as being the only character so far who can completely change his attack style. He uses a bow as it's the weapon he's weakest with, and he's working to master it. That's not how... Never mind. He debuted in the story as a non-playable character, and you learn quite early on that you shouldn't trust him. He is a member of the Fatui, and as friendly and helpful as he may seem, you'll end up facing off against him as a formidable foe. In his character chapter, you'll get to learn more about him as a Harbinger, and as his true self. For everything we've seen and heard of Child so far, I think it makes him one of the most likeable characters we've encountered. If you want to add Child to your team, you'll need to wish upon the Farewell of Snezhnaya event wish banner. We first saw this banner back in 1.1 and it's currently running now in 1.4. Alongside the banner, there is a trial stage which will net you 20 Primo Gems, as well as giving you the chance to test the character out and just make sure that you do like their playstyle before you go ahead and make those wishes. Once the banner ends, he won't be available in other event wishes. You'll have to wait and see if he comes back again. As well as hoarding your Primo Gems, if you want to wish for Child to join your team, you'll need to head to the Oceanid to stock up on pieces of Hydra Gems and the special boss drop, Cleansing Heart. You'll also need to take a stroll along Liyue's beaches for star conches and clean up a bunch of his Fatui buddies for their insignias. To upgrade his attacks, you'll need to collect the Freedom Talent books, more insignias, and take down the man himself at the Golden House for Shards of Foul Legacy. I think my account knows I want these, as I rarely seem to get them in comparison to the other items you can get here. Once you've added Child to your team, any more wishes returning the same character will give you Stellar Fortuna, which will light up his constellation Monoceros Kylie, improving his talent and combat capabilities. You probably want to know what he can do in combat and bring to your team, so let's have a closer look at his talents. His basic attack is called Cutting Torrent, where Child will fire off 6 consecutive arrows. Like the other archers, his charge attack is a more precise aimed shot with increased damage. While aiming, the power of Hydro will gather on the arrowhead. An arrow fully charged will deal Hydro damage and apply an effect called Riptide. For a plunging attack, Child shoots off a shower of arrows in midair before falling and striking the ground, dealing AoE damage on impact. So about Riptide. Opponents affected by Riptide will suffer additional damage when hit. A fully charged shot against an enemy affected by Riptide will trigger Riptide Flash, dealing consecutive bouts of AoE damage. Defeating an opponent affected by Riptide will trigger Riptide Burst, a Hydro Burst that will apply the Riptide status to any nearby opponents that it hits. After Child's first ascension, the talent Never Ending is unlocked, extending the duration of Riptide for an extra 8 seconds. This used to be very handy against the Fatui Pyro agents, as you'd see where they were even when they went incognito, but it seems like that may have been a bug and it's now been fixed. Editor Ray here. It looks like my game may have just been glitching out because it's back again. We see you, buddy. Alright then, back to business. If you're able to unlock his second constellation, Foul Legacy Understream, defeating an opponent affected by Riptide will regenerate 4 elemental energy for Child. Child's elemental skill is called Foul Legacy Raging Tide. He will unleash a set of weaponry made of pure water, dealing Hydro damage to surrounding enemies. This gives him an entirely new stance and attack pattern. His normal attack will now perform up to 6 consecutive strikes dealing Hydro damage that cannot be overridden by other elements. His charged attack will consume stamina to unleash a cross slash, and in this stance Child does not have a plunging attack. Hitting an opponent affected by Riptide with a melee attack causes Riptide Slash, and that will deal AoE Hydro damage. And you can still trigger Riptide Burst. Child can remain in this stance for up to 30 seconds and then will revert automatically back to the range stance, and the skill will enter cooldown. The longer the skill remains active, the longer the cooldown, up to a maximum of 45 seconds. His 4th ascension stage will unlock the skill Sword of Torrents. A critical hit while in melee stance will give Child another way to apply the Riptide status to enemies. I was really hoping to get to Constellation 1, Foul Legacy tied with Holder on this banner, but that didn't quite go to plan. This constellation decreases the cooldown of Foul Legacy Raging Tide by 20%, This will bring the maximum cooldown from 45 to 36 seconds. The third constellation, Abyssal Mayhem Vortex of Turmoil, grants an additional 3 talent levels to this skill. The fourth constellation, Abyssal Mayhem Hydro Spell, while still in the melee stance, any opponents on the field affected by Riptide will have a Riptide Slash automatically triggered against them every 4 seconds. For enemies not affected by Riptide, it will trigger Riptide Flash instead. The timings on these are not affected by, nor do they affect the timings on Riptide effects caused by normal attacks. Child's Elemental Burst Havoc Obliteration is a different attack depending on the stance when casting. In the range stance, Flash of Havoc swiftly fires a Hydro-imbued magic arrow, dealing AoE Hydro damage and applying Riptide. A portion of the energy needed to cast the Elemental Burst will then be returned. In the melee stance, Light of Obliteration performs a slash with a large AoE, dealing massive Hydro damage to all surrounding opponents and triggering a Riptide Blast. This blast will clear the Riptide status and trigger a Hydro Explosion, dealing AoE Hydro damage. A Riptide Blast is considered Elemental Burst damage. His fifth constellation, Havoc Formless Blade, like Constellation 3, will give an additional 3 talent levels, this time to the Elemental Burst. And the final constellation, Havoc Annihilation, when Child casts his Elemental Burst in the melee stance, the cooldown of the Elemental skill will be reset. The reset will take effect once he returns to range stance. If you have your energy recharged just right, this would probably mean 100% skill uptime. His sixth and last talent is unlocked as soon as Child joins the party, Master of Weaponry. In my opinion, this is the best passive talent of any character so far. Just having Child in the party will increase the level of every party member's basic attack by 1 level. And as a little extra, when cooking the defense boosting dish Calla Lily Seafood Soup, there's a chance he'll create his signature dish, a prize catch, instead. This dish will grant a greater defense boost to your team than the original product. So let's have a closer look at the Child on my account. You've already seen that I have none of his constellations unlocked, and his talents are upgraded to levels 6, 7 and 8. I have unlocked all of his Ascension levels, and he's currently at level 85 with maximum friendship. I don't have any 5-star bows, but I do have a maxed out Rust. Aside from matching his outfit, the bow's passive talent gives a boost to normal attacks, but a reduction on aim shots. I don't tend to use Child for aim shots, so even when I do, the 10% drop in damage output is a sacrifice that doesn't really change much. So unless I manage to get my hands on a really great 5-star bow, I think he'll keep this for a while. For artifacts, I've been trying to get my hands on a nice set of Heart of Depth, but I've not been having much luck in the peak, although I do seem to get the Compass with Elemental Mastery a lot. My current build is a 2-piece Gladiator's Finale and a 2-piece Exile, with an attack percent timepiece, a Hydro damage cup and a crit damage headpiece. I haven't changed his artifacts up for a while and probably won't until I manage to get the set I'm currently aiming for. With so many available characters in the game, there's a lot of combinations you can make when it comes to teams. But if you're new to the game, you may not have a lot of choices when it comes to teammates. Child can take any space within the starter team and work well. If you only want to bring along one archer, you can switch out Amber. If you only want one sword user, you can swap out Kaya or the Traveller. Or even switch out Lisa if you're not feeling the electro reaction route. I switched out Kaya for this example so we could play around with Vaporize, Electrocharge and Swirl reactions. The team on the banner would make a nice little group. This team would benefit from the Elemental Resonance Soothing Waters, making your team's healer Barbara more effective. Fischl offers great support, being able to use her elemental skill or burst and switch out while continuing to deal damage, while Rosario is a great option as a backup damage dealer when Child's skills are on cooldown. If you need to work on building up the friendship level of any of your characters, toss them into the mix with Child and head on over to the Pyro Regisvine. As he can switch between ranged and melee attacks, he's perfectly suited to dish out the Hydro damage on both of this boss's weak points with no assistance from the team, so they can kick back and relax and leave this one to him. I also tried out a little Child, Sucrose, Bennett and Zhang Ling mix for fun, and personally thought it worked quite well on that poor Ruin Guard. Although I'm not sure how this happened. You guys see that, right? If you're struggling with the cooldowns, the Animo Resonance Impetuous Winds grants a 5% reduction to skill cooldown. Although it only shaves off a few seconds, it's better than nothing. I personally love to pair him up with Chi Chi, but I just like freezing things. So that's all we have for today. If you made it all the way to the ending credits, thank you so much for watching. I'd love to know what your favourite teams and builds are for this character.
Care to exchange notes?
So please let us know down in the comments. Rosaria will be up next, so be sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more. But until then, see you next time.
Today was great. See you tomorrow, comrade.